All right, everyone. And thank you for joining me on Bridges Live. I'm Dr. Paul. And again, I like to have all these live shows. Is everything like to come on? Everything likes to pop on here on iHeart and iTunes. You can catch it all through your podcast stations. You can always reach out to me at Dr. Paul W. Dye at Gmail or drpaulistic.science.com. We are again bringing you to another show about getting information, understanding, and action. That's what all my shows are about in on Bridges Live. So I just wanted to say thank you all you guys who sponsor me, and thank you for allowing me to come to your homes and your listenings, and you can probably listen to me later. But I want to introduce, of course, I'd like to have my guests. If you, as you know that, Curtis, please introduce yourself, please.
Well, hello, Kurt Luthi here. I'm the executive director for the Red Cross in the Montgomery, Howard, and Frederick counties chapter.
Wow, and I'm glad that we have the Red Cross on because there's a lot of things that people just don't know about the Red Cross. So let's get that out of the way. How come? What is it used for? Is it a federal agency? Is it a nonprofit? Some people just don't have a clue because they've never used them, but they get all the services that they didn't know they had.
That's right. Yeah, there is still some confusion, but right off the top, we are a nonprofit. We have 91 cents of every dollar that's donated from the public or from foundations. We write grants, but we don't have any federal contracts. We raise all of our money to do our mission through the generosity of the American people.
So when it comes to generosity, basically we need your help. We need your funds. Let's keep it simple.
Yeah.
If it cannot, the Red Cross cannot operate across the world, across the United States, across our own counties without the support of public support.
That's absolutely right. We have a really broad mission, and we'll get into some of the details a little bit later. But you're absolutely right. There's not one thing that we can't do if the American people are behind us. And to your point, we actually do most of our work is certainly here domestic in the U.S. But Hurricane Eta, there's other hurricanes that have come through Central America recently, and we actually raise funds to help internationally as well. And on top of money that we might send internationally, there is an elite group of volunteers who also has the ability to travel when needed to other countries and provide either life-saving work, or oftentimes they'll set up a communications network. But there's some really fantastic things that we do internationally as well.
I think a lot of times I know people hear the Red Cross when there's a disaster, and
Yep.
that's a sad fact. And I cannot see a better way of getting the Red Cross out there for people to hear, because we're in a global disaster called the pandemic. We're in a country disaster called the pandemic, but it has affected Montgomery County strong. Do you want to talk about some of those things, that how it has affected us, that you recognize as the director?
Yeah, it's a really good point, because what's affecting the rest of the world is certainly affecting us here at home.
Hmm.
One of the biggest things is a lot of people might also know us as a place to donate and collect blood.
Right.
So the Red Cross collects about 41% of the nation's blood supply, and then we turn around, process that blood product, and then send it back out to hospitals as they need it. And when COVID hit in March, and everything started to shut down, the most immediate effect that it had on us is all these really wonderful partners, churches and civic groups and businesses, all of them who were getting ready to host a blood drive in March and April. That all went away, right? And so we immediately saw a very steep drop off in our blood drives. And I think the really remarkable thing that we also saw is then the public responded, right? So we put out the word that here's all this, here are all these people that need help, right? There are surgeries that are still happening. There are people that are that need that blood product, the platelets, the plasma, and we had a bunch of people, new organizations that stepped up and said, "No, we hear you. We're gonna host a blood drive," and really we've been able to cover a lot of that lost blood product that we had as COVID started. And we couldn't be more thankful for the public to step up in that way. But that was a really immediate effect of COVID hitting the U.S.
The governor, and other governors have said this about elective surgeries. You know, um, being so traveled as I am, elective surgeries doesn't mean nose jobs. It means hip replacements.
Yeah,
It means knee replacements. There are certain quote that falls under the guidelines of elective surgeries that people need for pain.
that's right.
And that is something that I don't think people actually think about. I think when people hear there's no more elective surgeries, people going, who cares if you need a tummy tuck? Well, anything outside of what you call trauma surgery,
Right.
and anything outside what you call of life-saving surgeries that's immediate is considered elective surgery.
That's correct. Yeah, and I'll tell you the other really great thing that we've done with the blood product. I think so. One, it's just been beneficial, period. But I think it's a real plus for people who are donating. Is we've actually added a COVID-19 antibody test to every donation that comes in. So if a person comes in and they donate, we can actually test to see if it's in a reasonable amount of time whether they have those COVID antibodies. And then if they happen to have them, what we can do then is we actually extract the plasma from that blood donation, and then we can use that convalescent plasma to help people who currently have COVID and help them recover with that plasma that was donated. So some really like a silver lining for sure in this whole thing is the ability to kind of tell people if they've had COVID and then see their experience benefit other people.
And that's not, I understand that this is social media, this is my media platform, and I've been doing this and stuff. But here's the thing, I don't understand why this type of information is not partnership with what you call newspaper media, where
Yeah.
people get more of that information, because those platelets and those plasmas and those blood products and getting tested for COVID, see if you had those antibodies, those are all 5 pluses. Now, that's important in a time of crisis. You can call whatever you want, and I don't see how anyone cannot call this pandemic, this COVID, a crisis that we need to pitch in. I believe in service. I know you believe in service. That's why you're working with the Red Cross. But we need the public help to serve. Why does that seem to be, as you found out, why does that seem to be so difficult for people not to serve? I think that's where I'm going with this question.
Yeah, just on the point of messaging, right? So there's been a couple other things in the news recently, in the last couple of months. But we actually are very thankful for outlets like you, right, to help us get out that message. And we do rely on our partners to kind of help us tell the story of this is why we're doing it, this is why it helps. And people are, some people are a little nervous of a needle anyway. And so, right. So part of it is just showing them how to be brave in general, but then you add the risk of COVID. And we certainly don't want anybody with underlying health conditions to kind of put themselves in a dangerous position if they don't feel comfortable. But it's a really remarkable thing that a person can do to help their neighbor. And so we're thankful for outlets like yours to kind of help us get that message out.
With COVID-19 and with this issue, are more blood trucks, can they roll out to sites so you can stop by and get the blood? Because that's not publicized unless you drive by it, often. I know with the churches and the partnerships that we're going to have it, that's when those big nice red trucks go out and say, step on in and get your blood drawn. But I know I haven't seen them. Is it because of a situation? Can we start rolling those out?
Yeah, so and that's really a good point because with COVID we've pivoted, right? So we used to do a lot of mobile drives where we did have our mobile blood unit kind of go out there, roll out to a parking lot, and you just kind of see it. So now, because like foot traffic has really dropped off, we found that we're having better success at having a partner who has maybe an unused facility that we can use every other month or every month, and then people start to know you can go there you know, every so often, and you can donate your blood there. So we're finding that we're not doing as many mobile drives, although we still are doing some of those. But what we're finding success is where people, very generous businesses and organizations are letting us come on a regular basis and get into their facility, and then people start to understand that. The other thing I'll say is you can find a blood drive anytime if you just go to redcross.org. And so that's the place where anything that you want to know about the Red Cross, you can sign up for a blood drive, and there's a ton of other information there. But if you're looking to donate blood, go to redcross.org.
I was going to tease. I mean, we don't have, the Red Cross doesn't have an app with that yet, or
We do. So we actually have fantastic apps. So we have an app for blood donations. So like you can actually, and I'm a blood donor as well, right? And so one of the best things about it is you donate, you can schedule, you can check in, you can do a pre-screening all on this app. And then once you've donated, you can watch as your donation kind of makes its way through the process and then actually gets delivered somewhere. And it's incredibly satisfying to kind of watch this thing that you hope is out there doing good in the world. And then you see it actually making its way to the end state. And it, we like to say that every blood donation has the potential to save up to 3 lives. So that's pretty incredible.
So now that's a number I've heard before, seen before, but how did we get that number? How did you get that number?
That's a great question. I think part of it is that they can pull out different blood product from that. So the plasma, the whole blood, and platelets.
And platelets. And I was going to say, I believe it's those 3 things that are used in specific cases to save lives. Remember, people, listen to people. When do you think people are getting blood? It saddens me to think that sometimes people don't serve because of apathy. And I've thrown that out for a long time, many years. Now I'm not convinced of that anymore. I'm convinced that people don't serve because they have lack of information and understanding. So how does blood save lives? Blood is only used in life savings. It is not to use just to give. Just randomly. It doesn't work that way. And if you watch old shows like ER, and I think I just dated myself, right? And if you're like ER, well, I'm not gonna get into that with oh my God, who was the heartthrob that came out of that?
George Clooney.
George Clooney, right. The heart, right. He was our first love doctor, right? So we have, as I've been talking about, a lot of Black issues, and because of a lot of Black issues. But before I get into that, if anyone has any questions, they can always get on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. You can always put in a question if you have any questions for us. And that's also, you can always just give us an email or text me if you have any questions, or inbox me. But here's the thing, certain communities, the Black community, does not have a good relationship with the Red Cross. Have you found that to be true?
I certainly think that we have a room to improve the relationship and strengthen and grow it. But we're talking about blood, and if you want to talk about the Black community, this is a perfect way to talk about the fact that we have a huge need for sickle cell donors, right? So we have a population that suffers from sickle cell, and as we're continuing, as the science continues to develop, there are these protein markers that if you can have a Black donor, there's a better chance of matching that blood type with the proteins to make that available to somebody who's suffering from sickle cell. So
that's just a science of fact. Yeah, I trust me. I have the sickle cell trait myself. I have 7 grandchildren, but one of my grandchildren has the trait also. They thought she identified with one of the markers. They thought she had it, but no, she just has the trait. And it is very important, it's very painful. And when Blacks donate blood, you're saving Black lives. So when we talk about Black Lives Matter, yeah, you can go walk something, hold something, you can go vote, and I'm glad you did, and however how you voted, I'm glad you voted. But this is something that directly affects people of your skin color. How that is so, if you want to say I want to save lives and I want to save Black lives, here it is. I mean, you can't get any more straightforward than giving your own blood, to save a life. Am I right?
That's, man, I couldn't have said it better myself. And let me just say, I think people should do it all, right?
Right, right.
March, vote, donate.
Right. Off air, we were talking, and this may have a lot to do with it. And again, it goes back to understanding information. But we don't have civics classes, and I understand that. And so we don't have what you call an understanding of civic engagement. And we also don't understand what disobedience is, or organized disobedience, or what you call the challenge of the republic, right? And democracy means there's an action of people. And I think and I write these articles, I think we're only going to be as strong as we, and I know it's a corny phrase, and I know it's been said before in many platitudes, but instead of just hitting keynotes and key phrases on your Facebook, we want action.
Yeah.
We cannot get better without action. And, community action, this is what this is. This is what donation is. This is what volunteering your time. I know we're coming up around this season, this Thanksgiving season. We call it the holiday season. And then we have this hunger thing people talk about, and who doesn't. You know what? There's people starving all over the country for all kinds of reasons, all over the United States for all kinds of reasons. It's not just this month.
That's right.
So to me, it hurts my feeling when people don't give of themselves, and people are starving last week, 2 months ago, and this is one of these organizations, the Red Cross, has touched all those lives.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my own personal philosophy is, you're talking about civics and the strength of the republic. And I think that one of the things that really made America great, I think about my grandfather who was in that greatest generation. And the thing that defines that is that giving of yourself, right? The self-sacrifice. And one of the things that the Red Cross, and the Red Cross is certainly not the only organization that you can do this with. But the point is that a person needs to find that place in the world where you're investing in something that's bigger than yourself. You got to find a place where you're doing something that benefits another person with no obligation to get something in return, right? A selfless act. And so, the Red Cross giving blood, we've already talked about that, right? What a selfless thing to do is to physically and literally give a piece of yourself to save somebody else's life. It's like one of the easiest ways to help somebody. It's a no-brainer to me.
It's a no-brainer.
Right. And then, and you touched on the other one, right? Which is volunteering, right? So the Red Cross has literally thousands of opportunities to volunteer and to do something good in this world, to give back, to start to build this great republic that we have, to start to alleviate some of the civic problems, because we're talking about an organization that celebrates diversity, that has these 7 fundamental principles about neutrality and independence, and we could go in humanity and unity. We could go through those and talk about all of those, but those are the concepts. Those are the core principles that make a country, I think, really remarkable. And so if you come into the Red Cross and you buy into this philosophy and you start to volunteer and you start to see the avenues for that you can help, like with your gifts and your skill sets and your knowledge and your availability, there's a place for you to do that. And one of the things that's been a real pleasure for me over the many years that I've been doing this is to see people who come in thinking, oh, I don't have that much to give. I had a conversation just today with somebody who's so remarkable, right, and so accomplished, and they literally said to me, I don't know if I have what you're looking for. And I go, you do. And
Here's the thing, you know, and I've had those conversations with people before, and then I throw this back at not you, Kurt, but to the people listening and watching and sharing and liking, whatever, how they're going to do this. What do you think you are not? Like, why would you think you're not something? And I think that's where we fall short, is that we think less of ourselves so we don't give of ourselves. And it's tough to encourage someone who doesn't think highly of themselves. And I'm not talking about boastful of themselves or being egotistical. I'm just talking about humanity means all. It doesn't mean me.
right.
Humanity is a group, and for us to serve humanity, it means to serve the collective group.
Yeah.
And you have a purpose.
So let me tell you a story, right?
Yeah.
So there's a volunteer that's in our area. His name is Mike Peoples, and we had the opportunity to do a video about Mike. Mike tells his story, and you should go watch it for yourself because it's moving, it's powerful. But Mike served in the Army, had a nice career, then started to have some health problems, and then got medically discharged. And here he is, he's talking about being in rehab and physical therapy and doing these things every day. And his mom put him on a board of some charity. and here he is at this community meeting with his organization, and the Red Cross happened to be there. And they started talking, and he expressed enough interest where they set up another meeting and invited him to come in and tour the facility. Well, he was having trouble walking, right? And so they were doing this tour of the facility, and they got to this set of steps, and he goes, and this was so powerful because he said, "Good, finally." So sitting at the bottom of the steps, he said, "Finally, they're going to find out that I'm not worth it because I can't make it up these steps. They're going to find out that what they're asking me to do, I'm not even worth the trouble." And the lady was at the top of the steps. She looked back down at him and said, "Oh man, I'm sorry. Do you want us to come and help you?" And he looked at his service dog, he thought about it, and he goes, "I'm gonna go for it." And it took him 20 minutes to get up those steps. And when he got up to the top of the steps, they just went on like it was nothing. And that blew his mind because he thought this was going to be the point where he was going to prove how worthless he was. You fast forward 15 more years later, he's this decorated volunteer. He found purpose in serving. He helps other veterans. He helps other service members figure out how to bolster and show their family resilience through some of this training that we have. But he found his value in service. And I think that's one of the things that people don't understand either, is when you come in and you think, "Oh, I don't have what it takes to kind of be any use." Well, you're wrong. You're wrong.
You're wrong.
You are valuable. You are worth it. And you have something to give. We just got to find what it is. We got to find that right fit.
And you know, we can find the right fit, but we can't find you until you come in.
That's right.
Okay, we can find the fit, but you got to come in. It's like how I feel about mental health issues. There's tons of people that out here to help you with your mental health and mental emotions and your emotions that's going on, that's rapidly increasing. There's things, and I'm not going to go on to that because I talk about that on my Mental Health Mondays. But you have to raise your hand so we can recognize you. And until that happens, so I know people are afraid of COVID.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. When people come in, what's that assurance that it's going to be okay for them to come in to volunteer?
Yeah, and that's such a great question during this time. And the short answer is a lot of our work has gone remote, just like everybody else, right? And so one of the programs that we do day in and day out is we actually service people who have had an apartment fire or a home fire, and and that fire has displaced them. And so in the past, previous to COVID, we would have volunteers that would roll out in a Red Cross vehicle and roll up to a house that was on fire, maybe even while the fire department was still there. And the family who was displaced is sitting on the curb, warm weather, cold weather, didn't matter. But here the Red Cross volunteers are rolling up in the middle of the night. They're going to put a blanket around you. They're going to make sure that you have hydration, that make sure you have a place to stay that night, give you a few resources to kind of make it through the next couple of days, hopefully until your insurance kicks in, right?
Right.
But now what we're doing is we're able to do that same work. And sadly, because of COVID, we're not doing that in person. We're doing all that through a phone call, right? Which loses a little bit of the human touch.
Yeah.
But that phone call is still coming. You're still connected to a network that cares about you, that wants to see you back up on your feet, that is a doorway to some resources. And so as a volunteer, you can still come in, you can still have that human connection, you can still do some really positive things.
So as people, we're going to get through this. And this is not through it. We're not going to get over it. We're actually going to get through this. This is going to pave a way. We have a new normal, and we're going to work this out in our new normal. And no matter how many difficult challenges we may have, they're not challenges because we've never been here before. I can only consider something a challenge if it literally happens twice. This is the first time ever something like this has ever happened to us, all of us. If you can't even count the bubonic plague, right? The only thing we have an association is the plague that happened in 1966. It doesn't even compare to what we're going through right now. So this is not a disaster because we never could see this coming. And people can say, well, you could tell, bird flu. I'm not. Those were things, H1N1, all those different. Here's the thing. We are making new strides every day to be better than the day before.
Yeah.
And that's what counts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I go back to what we've already talked about, right? Like if you're feeling like you're down, right? Or if you're having some of those feelings of whether you could actually make a difference. One, you need to hear that you can, and I'm here to say, yes, you can. But you're right too. You gotta be brave enough. You gotta take a risk. You gotta raise your hand and step forward, and you gotta take some initiative to launch yourself out there and say, I don't know what the end state is going to be. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I believe enough that it will, right? And so there is a little bit of a faith aspect to it because you're stepping out and you don't know how it's going to end. And I think as somebody who's already walked down that path a little bit further than perhaps you have, I can give you my personal guarantee you're going to find a place to serve. It's going to benefit you, your mentality, your psyche. It feels good to help somebody else. And there's lots of ways to do it. Like we just mentioned, like our disaster action teams are the ones that are going out there to those home fires. But we have high school clubs, right? We have high school Red Cross clubs, and they do a whole bunch of stuff. They can teach their peers in high school about disaster preparedness. We had a club recently that did a fundraiser at Chipotle, and they raised a bunch of money to go to the wildfires that were out in California and Oregon and Washington. Like these are kids who are stuck at home just like the rest of us, but they're finding ways to help their neighbor.
We know that once you think more outside of yourself and drop the ego, we become a better country. And if ever a time, I really believe there's a precipice that we need you to join. Not I, not you, not them, but we need to be better, and that's the only way we can do it. Serve. Is there anything you want to let people know? Because I think we're going to have more of these with the Red Cross and the volunteering and just getting information out especially where drives are and how to help. Because again, I still think people don't find the information unless it's put on their lap. Let's just put on their news feed. Let's just put on their Twitter account. Let's just put on. So let's do all that, and I will do all that to try to keep pushing that information out there, saying yes, you too can serve. Because I that's probably my ultimate thing. I probably sound the board more than anything is service to others.
Yeah, yeah, and again, the best way is redcross.org, right? So you can find everything you need to know at that website. But we have our mobile apps. So through Apple Play or Google Play, or excuse me, the Apple Store or Google Play, you can find the Red Cross apps, first aid app, tornado warning app, hurricane app, lots of really great things. Even an app that walks you through first aid things, even if you haven't taken a first aid class.
Which you should do.
Which you should do. CPR, first aid, take a class. So
my wife teaches that.
Is that right?
Yeah, she gives to people that the BLS, CPR. She teaches all that. She certifies people. Matter of fact, I think she's doing 4 today.
That's right.
So yeah, we believe in saving lives because I believe in saving. I mean, this is what we do. We teach people how to save lives and protect a life. Man, you got to learn how to do it.
You got to know how to do it. So redcross.org, the apps. We're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. We're even on TikTok now. So you can find Red Cross everywhere.
Have you done a TikTok? I've not done one TikTok. I have not done one TikTok. Yeah, maybe because I don't have small children for me doing this, and I haven't done it. Kurt, thank you. It's a blessing. Thank you for joining me on Bridges Live. Thank you all for joining me on Bridges Live. If you remember redcross.org, please hit that, get your apps downloaded. If you have any questions, please hit me up and share this, like this, put this out there, because I think, again, it doesn't have to be redundant, because I still don't think we have enough people doing it. Yeah. We had enough people saying, get out the vote, get out the vote. And I think that was the most incredible thing we've ever had, was the most people voted in history, right? Now it's time to serve.
That's right. I love it.
Thank you so much, Kurt. And
thank you.
I'll be talking to you later. Many blessings, man.
Thank you.
Oh.